I want to give a shout out to my guys at StallionRoyale.com for sponsoring this episode and hooking me up with this awesome World Peace t-shirt. Go and check them out. They have awesome hoodies and awesome tees and activewear for women. So go ahead and show them some support, guys. Welcome back to another episode of my show. Look, guys, anywhere there's oil, there's war. Yeah, and Russia got tons of it. So, no more war, people. We don't want no more. That's all I have to say about this Russia and Ukraine crisis. The last World War killed over 60 million people. Over 60 million. That's a lot of people. And I believe this war, if it happens, it will cause so much more casualties because this will be a nuclear war. Now, if you ever want to know the impact of a nuclear bomb, you just ask the Japanese. They'll tell you. They suffered two of those things, and they all said no more war. Now, let me give you a quick history of the Ukraine and Russia crisis. Now, on September 2nd, 1945, Japan finally surrendered, and the Cold War had officially ended. On March 17, 1948, the Treaty of Brussels was signed between Belgium, France, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and the UK. Now, in that same year, the US Secretary of State, George C. Marshall, he orders a meeting of the European leaders at the Pentagon to talk about military alliances, and NATO was formed shortly after on April 4th, 1949. Now, it included the 5 countries from the Treaty of Brussels, and it also included the USA, Canada, Norway, Italy, Denmark, and Iceland. By that time, Lord Ismay, who was the Secretary for NATO, stated that NATO's goal, was to keep the Russians out, the Americans in, and the Germans down. Now, in 1950, the Korean War breaks out, and from 1951 to 1952, NATO sends 200 ships and 80,000 men on one of the largest military exercises to Korea. The success of the UN and NATO caused an armistice to be between North and South Korea in 1953. Now, this would cement NATO as one of the most powerful military force, not just against the Soviet Union, but against Southeast Asia and any other communist countries. Now, in 1954, the Soviet Union, they asked NATO for membership to preserve peace in Europe, but NATO countries, they flat out said no because they believed that the Russians wanted to infiltrate and destroy their alliance. If they had joined, would it have been different today? We don't know. Now, on May 9, 1955, West Germany joins NATO. And remember that I said the Secretary had said that his goal was to keep the Germans down, but now he had to change her heart, and because NATO realized that they needed the manpower from Germany to fend off any possible Russian invasion through East Germany. Soviet Union has controlled that section for a while. Now, Russia responded with the creation of the Warsaw Pact, which was signed May 14, 1955 by Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, and Albania. Now, this pact was to prevent the invasion of its territory by the West and to maintain military control over Central and Eastern Europe. Now, the Warsaw Pact invaded Hungary in 1956, and then they invaded Czechoslovakia in 1968, overthrew Alexander Dubček, and installed a more pro-Soviet leader who brought economic stability in the region. But that man, he silenced dissenting voices and suppressed free press. Does this remind you of another country we all know and love? Think about it. Now, on March 11, 1985, Gorbachev was named Secretary General of the Soviet Union, and he instituted the policies of glasnost, which meant openness, and he instituted reconstruction, which ultimately brought the destruction of the Soviet Empire. Now, they lost control of the media and the public sphere, which consequently led to the uprising of democratic movements. Now, since 1997 to now, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovenia, Estonia, Bulgaria, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Albania, and Croatia have joined NATO and almost completely surrounded Russia. Remember, if you attack one NATO nation, you attack them all. So here's a problem with Ukraine and Russia right now. Russia had said from previous years that they would not negotiate on Ukraine ever joining NATO and placing military weapons near the Russian borders. Now, we don't condone the invasion of any sovereign nation in this world, and that includes Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Libya, Palestine, Sudan, and many more. So obviously we don't support the Russian invasion of Ukraine. But think about this for a second. Will a no-fly zone make the situation any better? Will it bring peace in Ukraine? Or will it ultimately increase tensions between the two nations, causing World War III, where millions of innocent lives will be lost? That's a lot. We don't need this. Now you must be asking, if Zelensky doesn't put a no-fly zone, how will he stop the Russian planes from bombing his nation? Here's the answer.
The only way to actually implement something like a no-fly zone is to send NATO planes into Ukrainian airspace and to shoot down Russian planes, and that could lead to a full-fledged war. In Europe, President Biden has been clear that we are not going to get into a war with Russia, but we are going to tremendous lengths with allies and partners to provide Ukrainians with the means to effectively defend themselves.
Now, this is not my words, this is what he's saying, okay? Now, I think Putin and Zelensky must reach a resolution peacefully and quickly, because Ukraine doesn't seem to meet the requirements to join NATO, so they will never join NATO. So why can't they just come to a peaceful decision without causing these lives? You know? Now, calling for America to intervene would only add fuel to the fire. We really don't know who will support Russia if a war breaks out. Now, what we do know is that NATO and the UN will support the West. Now, as a matter of fact, did you all know that America contributes 3/4 of NATO's budget? So essentially, NATO is an extension of America. NATO does exactly what America wants it to do. So, what about India and China? What will they do if a war breaks out? What if Russia formed a partnership with some of the countries like, Jamaica, Cuba, and Canada, and others in the Atlantic, and they called it PATO, the Pacific Atlantic Treaty Organization? What would America say, and what would they do in Jamaica and Cuba? As a matter of fact, we know what they do in Cuba because that happened back in the day. Now, we know that there's a rising number of Americans wanting to protest the cost of living and wages and governmental overreach. And we know that CNN, they need a boost in ratings, so them propping up a war is definitely a good thing for them and for those who have invested to make this war happen. But you know who it doesn't benefit? Us. It does not benefit us one bit. We'll just keep on losing our brothers and sisters in this. Now, some may say, that's happened all the way over the east, so why should we care here on the west? It's pretty safe over here in the US. Look, we import many cheap goods and food from China and India. And it means the price of these things will skyrocket higher than it is right now. And we're already in an inflation. I think inflation will triple by then. If the war breaks out, inflation will triple. And we don't know how long this war will last if it does occur. And it might drag on and send us into another Great Depression. Now, as for my fellow Jamaicans, we don't know say when America cough, we catch cold. So not now good for us. So, if you can't produce, you have a land to produce your food and living and stuff, you're not good for now. So start preparing, people. So to anyone watching this, do you have the resources to support yourself and your family today? What about tomorrow? Would you find yourself flocking to supermarkets and gas stations and bodegas, waiting in these long lines just to buy a case of water that's going to cost you probably $15? And don't forget, there's another wave of the pandemic that's coming. They say it's destroying Europe, so it's coming over here. That means there's another set of lockdowns and everything that's going to come, and more loss of jobs and stuff that's going to come. I would say people, get ready. Stock up. Stock up on your canned goods while they are still affordable. And keep posting and sending the message that we as a people don't want no war. Thank you.